Hey everybody, personal story writers, creative nonfiction writers, memoirists, whoever you are, I'm Scott Butwell and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. I'm a story nerd. That means I love to look at stories, my own stories and other people's stories, and study them to see what makes them work. So this channel is all about the craft of writing. What I love to do is read a memoir and really think about how I can apply some of those techniques, some of that style of writing to the more condensed, informal style of online writing. So if you really love the craft of writing, if you love to get better in your writing, I encourage you to join me in my journey in growing as a writer. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite parts of a memoir story, when a writer shows an arc in their story or in their character. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know how to create an arc in your stories. First, let's talk about what is an arc in a story. An arc simply means that a character changes from the beginning to the end of a story. As a memoirist told me at the Los Angeles Times Book Festival, a story isn't just this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's just a sequence of events, and it gets boring quickly. No, in a story, we want to see you as a narrator going through some kind of change. That's what's exciting to me as a reader. It makes me want to read your story. I read a great example of a story that had changed today. It was by Bob Merkel on Medium, and he showed how he started out in a yoga class feeling like a stranger. But by the end of the class, by doing all the breathing exercises and all the stretches, he began to feel a sense of community with the other people in his class, just by being in the class together. So, how do you create an arc in a character or a story? First, I think you have to show your character in one state of being at the beginning of your story. And you have to make that state of being really clear through personal details. And then in the middle part of your story, you really want to, through show, not tell writing, through a lot of details, you want to show how your character, you as a narrator, is beginning to change. So you got to really slow down your writing and describe and give details about how you are changing. Let me give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. In my last story on Medium, I wrote about how I felt like the dunce dad of the Cub Scout pack, because in the beginning of the story, I showed how my son and I were really struggling to paddle a canoe in sync. We were splashing and spinning around in circles, kind of like we're on the teacups at Disneyland, more than paddling in sync and moving forward. So I showed that at the very beginning. I talked about how I felt like we were going to be like a tumbleweed blown out to the Pacific Ocean. And I showed how bad we were at paddling in the beginning. And then I really slowed things down to really show, not tell, about how we started to paddle in sync and how we started to just make little tiny incremental bits of progress and what we were doing to make that progress. So again, really to show, not tell, it's really slowing down and really isolating kind of a blow-by-blow moment about what's happening to be able to show that change. Let me read just a little excerpt from my story so you can really get a clear picture of what I'm talking about, blow-by-blow details. So here it is. We have to paddle at the same time, I tell my son with a sense of urgency. His eyes meet my gaze. Both of our eyes express uncertainty, yet we dig our paddles in the water, pull them alongside the canoe, and lift the paddles out at the same time. The canoe wobbles. We lurch forward only a few inches, but yes, we're no longer spinning. It's our first smooth, coordinated stroke, and our canoe is finally moving towards the shore and not the Pacific Ocean. Keep paddling at the same time I paddle, I tell my son. We both lift our paddles out of the water, sweep our paddles alongside the canoes, and our canoe moves forward a couple more feet. That's 2 coordinated strokes. Praise God. I give my son an I'm proud of you look, but don't break our concentration or teamwork. I want to share the ending of my story so you can see how we started out in one place in the beginning. We were splashing and spinning around like we're on the teacups. And then I showed blow by blow details about how we started to row and sink or paddle and sink. And then I want to show at the end, where we end up at the end, how we're in a different place than we were in the beginning. And a lot of times what I've noticed is sometimes the ending can just be where you have a subtle shift in your thinking. In this case, we definitely had a sense of accomplishment. So let me share the ending so you can see where we ended up. We still have 100 yards to the shore, a football field to the end zone, my eyes locking on my son. If his strokes become slower, I slow down mine. We lift our paddles, sweep them alongside the canoe, and dip them back in the water. Lift, sweep, in perfect harmony. We're like two synchronized swimmers as I fit my stroke to each one of my son's strokes. 50 yards from the shore, our paddling becomes second nature. The breeze feels cool on my face. I squint from the sunshine and taste the salt from the ocean. Then he stops paddling, and so do I. We rest for a moment. The water is glistening from the reflection of the sun, and I no longer feel like I'm the dunce dad of Pack 658. I take a breath and relax, since I know we'll make it to shore. We're about 20 feet away from the beach, 15, 10, and we'll be there. We'll step onto the shore having learned how to paddle a canoe in sync, something every father and son should have the opportunity to experience. No, we haven't been hauling ass like the older Cub Scouts in kayaks, but my son and I have learned to paddle a canoe in sync, and that feels like a huge accomplishment for us. So there you have it. Show in the very beginning of your story, kind of your beginning state of mind. And then after that, you want to show how you're gradually changing. Blow by blow description, really slow things down and show that change. And at the end, just show where you end up and how you're different at the end than at the beginning. That's the kind of story I want to read. That's the kind of story other people want to read, because we all want to change. We're all kind of growing as people. We don't want to just read a story where it's this happens and this happens and this happens. That's just a sequence of events that's not very exciting to read. We want to read change. Hopefully you found this video helpful in your own writing. And if you've never clicked on that subscribe button to receive notifications of these videos, make sure you guys do that. And until then, happy writing, everybody.